Back in 2020, sorry, not 2020, 2000. Back in 2000, there was a film that you may or may not remember called What Women Want. It was a kind of romantic comedy based on the fact that if only men could understand and hear what women are thinking, we'd be able to care for them better. That's the desire maybe that men have, normally because we don't want to work too hard. Just tell us what you want rather than leaving it for us to work out, that kind of attitude. Well, Mel Gibson in this film longs to understand what women think and what he could do to please women. And falling in the bath with an electric hairdryer, which I don't recommend, there's something happened where he had the ability to hear and to read ladies' minds. And the film is about that. But there's one part where he's walking down the footpath and he's surrounded, it seems, by women or even couples, but he's able to hear what everybody's thinking. He could even hear the French female poodle, who was trying to say something. And eventually it was all too much. To hear all the noise meant that he could hear nothing, but just got a headache. You know, we live at a time where there is so many voices, where there's so much sound. When I first started these services and sitting in the garden, all I could hear was the sound of the bird song. It was beautiful. Whereas now I hear so many cars that have gone back on the road, and it's very different. It seems that everybody is travelling again, even though we're advised not to. But silence is something that is very precious. And one of the things that I've discovered in lockdown is that I really enjoy silence. I love turning off the television and everything else and just sitting in silence. And it's certainly easier to listen and to hear things, funnily enough, when we're silent. And certainly that's true from a spiritual point of view. So often in ministry, I speak with people who say, I'm not too sure if God hears me or God is with me. I sometimes think that God doesn't know what I'm going through. Otherwise, he would change things. And I guess that we all live a kind of life where we see what we believe. Well, way back at the start of the Old Testament, there's the story of Abram, as he was known then, and his wife Sarai. And they had an Egyptian slave called Hagar. And I won't go into all of the story. But in that story, there comes a point where Hagar, scared, vulnerable, alone, feeling insecure, is driven out into the desert. And in that place, she comes across God. God reveals himself to her. And what he says to her encourages her. And Hagar's response is to say, El Rai. It's a Hebrew word or name. And what the name means is El, God, and Ruai, the one who sees. And Hagar was able to say of God, you see me. And that was transforming for Hagar. Rather than running away, rather than being stuck in that painful place of isolation, of being alone, of total insecurity, because she had a confidence that God could see her, and by that she was able to know that God understood her, knew what she was thinking, knew her insecurities, knew her fears. He was able to see that she was vulnerable. And she went right back from whence she had come to fulfill her life. She wasn't a believer. She didn't follow the ways of God. But she was part of a religion that focused only on what could be seen. They worshipped stone gods, or gods carved out of wood. And our God, Yahweh, is not like that. But what she discovered was, rather than her trying to find God, he revealed himself to her. And he revealed himself as the one who could see her. I know life not only is difficult now, but has been difficult for many people over years. We look back on our lives at times and situations and we wonder, did God understand what I was going through? Even now, does he see how difficult this lockdown is? God is so remote. And yet, another word for Yahweh is the God who sees me. Please be assured that God sees you. He knows your thoughts. He knows what things trouble you, what things cause you anxiety. He knows your questions. And through that all, he says to you, I love you with an everlasting love. We need to learn to talk to God. We need to learn to be silenced and allow God to speak to us through his voice, his calm voice. Elijah wanted to hear God, and he thought he would hear him through the storm. He thought he would hear him through various means, but eventually he heard God through the whisper, the calm, still, small voice of God. After this last hymn, I'll come back and pray.